The story starts in the rainy season. The main character forgets his umbrella and gets wet from the rain. He starts running to his apartment to get shelter. As he's going up the stairs, he meets a girl holding a sword. The girl gives him a scary look, which startles him. Then, a pair of keys falls to the ground, and the sound of the keys scares the girl. At first, he's scared, but when he looks closely, he thinks she's just dressed up like a character. He's impressed by how good her costume is, even down to the sandals. He walks away, thinking she's really serious about her costume. But then, she tells him to stop. He says it's his house and wonders if he scared her. She acts aggressively, which makes him confused. He thinks she's strange and goes inside, closing the door. He sees her still standing by the stairs after his shower. He gets a drink and calls his cat Winter Melon for food. He drinks from the can and it feels refreshing after his shower. He sits by the window saying he's done with his work. Time passes and he grabs his umbrella, checking if the girl is still there. No one's there, but he opens the door to be sure. Surprise, the girl's sitting right by the door. He gets nervous, telling her she should use her umbrella to go home. He suggests she call her family too. He says she's in the neighbourhood of Baywing Road. She's confused and asks who he is. He gives his name as Lei Feng. He asks if she wants the umbrella, but she doesn't understand. She introduces herself as a disciple of Basalt Gang, saying she has no idea why she's there. Lei thinks she might be sick or pretending to be in 8th grade. He considers running or calling security. He decides to call security and talks about the situation. The girl intensely stares at the TV and gets scared by it. LA's still talking, but then he sees the girl stab the TV with her sword, breaking it. She looks scared, but Lei can't understand what just happened. After that, the girl gives him a murderous look, and Lei's hang up the phone. Before we continue, take a moment to answer the question of the day. What's your favourite time period to be in? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out. Now back to the recap. Lei knew that things are going to get dangerous if he doesn't do something. The girl then asked about the people in the box and who was he talking to. Lei wondered if she is from Wukiao Acrobatic Troupe and if she can't even afford to pay for the TV. He tells her to put down her sword and says that he is a good person while she was pulling her sword from the TV. He noticed that it was a real sword. He asked her name and where she came from. She replied that her name is Jonghee and she is a disciple of Salt Gang. He asked where the Salt Gang is, and she gets surprised that he doesn't know about it. He replied he hasn't heard of the Salt Gang and looked at her drenched body. Lei says that he is a good person and she can ask him any question. Jiang said that she wanted to go home back to the Salt Gang. He asks if she knows a certain city, but she was clueless. He then wondered if she is an ancient person and asked who the Emperor is. She was clueless and says that Her Majesty is just Her Majesty. Lei gets angry and asked what year it was. Jiang then confirmed if it wasn't the 16th year of Kaiyan. Lei gets shocked because it didn't seem that she is joking and tells her to give him a second. He then searches the internet and asked if the Emperor's name was Tang Xuanzong, but she had no clue. He then continues to ask her about several names, but the names of famous Chinese emperors rang a bell, and she asked if he knew him. It was the name of a famous game character that Lei knew from a game. The food delivery man then rings the bell and makes her startled. She asked about the noise and draws her blade, but Lei tells her to stop. He says that someone brought goods for him, and they are not a bad guy. She asked if it is a servant, to which he replied that it is a food delivery man. Lei then brings the food to her, and asks if she wanted to eat it together. She replies that there was no need but thanks him. Lei gets sweaty and feels a bit nervous. He asks her what she meant by that, and she answers that she saw everyone's short hair and wondered if they were exiled. Lei's curious, so he asks if she saw anyone. She explains she stayed hidden in the dark and looked around. Lei's relieved nothing bad happened, and he's about to eat his burger when Jiang suddenly leans in and reminds him that he didn't answer her question yet. Lei quickly responds that their short hair is because of the local custom. He offers her some food, and she looks at it for a moment but shakes her head, saying she doesn't want it. He then offers her a drink, mentioning he already opened the can. She gets angry, thinking he's looking down on her, and demands to know what the food is. Lei insists he's not looking down on her, and explains that it's a hamburger. Unfortunately, the can of Coke on the table falls and spills, and Jiang, seeing the colour of the liquid, thinks it might be poisonous. Lei tries to calm her down, assuring her it's not poisonous, but she draws her sword and pins him down. She stares at him fiercely, and Lei, not wanting to be hurt, grabs the can and drinks the Coke to prove it's safe. He tells her to put her sword away, and explains he's a good person. Then he points to his cat, mentioning that she's scaring his cat named Winter Melon. Lei looks at Jiang, thinking about how to handle the situation. He considers 3 options: leaving her on the streets to starve, handing her over to the police, or observing her because she might know some ancient secret techniques. He's excited about the possibility of learning something unique from her. After his thoughts, he insists once again that she should try the burger. She's drooling a little as she eyes the food, but she still refuses. She asks what Lei is holding, and he replies it's food. He even suggests taking a bite to prove it's not poisonous. Jiang replied that he should while drooling while he was taking the bite. He thought that this sort of food might be too much for her. He then says that her body won't be able to handle this food, so he will prepare a rice bowl for her. He then tells her to sit, as seeing her standing with a sword makes him scared. Jiang then touches the sofa and tries to sit cautiously. At that time, Jiang was thinking that although she was unfamiliar with everything, she knows that he was trying to help her by offering the umbrella. The room seemed weird, and the stuff he was eating made him look like a weird person to her, so she wants to be careful. She then asked about Liu Bei, as Lei mentioned his name before. He tells her to put her sword away, and said that she might get shocked to hear it. She says that she wants to go home no matter where that place is. He looks at her with a sad face and said that she might not be able to return as it is really far away. She asked how far it is. Lei replies that it is 1,200 years far. Jiang asked what did he mean. So Lei explained that this era is 1,200 years after the era she is from. He says that her emperor friends or everyone she knew were from over 1,000 years ago and that they are already dead. Jiang stands up and calls him a liar. He then tells her that she will find out about it slowly. He also said that the current era is peaceful, but there is a set of laws that she needs to follow. Jiang Lin continued to call him a liar, but Lei said that she will understand if she is a smart person. He said that everyone she knew became history. Jiang gets angry and tries to leave, but Lei tells her to stop. She then draws her blade and points it at him. He repeats about the laws, said that she can't go out with a sword like that. Jiang's curiosity bubbled as she asked Lei why he was helping her. He replied calmly that he had taken in Winter Melon when the cat was outside. She raised an eyebrow, wondering who this Winter Melon was. Lei chuckled softly, revealing that Winter Melon was actually a chubby cat. This response caught Jiang off guard, and she felt a surge of frustration. "Are you looking down on me?" she demanded, her irritation showing. From what she had observed, Lei didn't seem like an evil person, just an ordinary one who had crossed paths with her during the dimming of the day. He had kindly offered his umbrella. "Why help me?" Jiang persisted, her tone probing. Lei's lips curved into a half-smile as he admitted finding the situation intriguing. He turned the question back to her, asking what she would do if their roles were reversed. Jiang's answer was direct. She believed Lei would have been taken to the chief and subsequently executed. Lei's expression hardened at her response, and he muttered, "Omae wo mu shinderu." Collecting himself, he explained that in this peaceful community, killing was not an option. He admitted his lack of knowledge about her arrival, but cautioned her against harming anyone while she resided here. He also urged her not to wreak havoc, referring to the incident with his TV. He wanted to help Jiang, but he warned about the watchful eyes of the police. Pondering her predicament, Jiang realized she had no proper clothes for this era and nowhere else to go. Her gaze shifted as Lei suggested she lower her sword, promising to arrange food for her. He added that brandishing her weapon in public would cause trouble. Reluctantly, Jiang glanced at her sword and flung it aside. Lei's next question was about her usual meals. His face lit up with an idea, and he decided to order rice and buns for her. He advised her to take a shower, and inquired if she knew how to use the bathroom. Confusion painted her features as she admitted she had no idea. She questioned where the bath was, and Lei guided her to the toilet, which left her surprised. With a reassuring smile, Lei acknowledged that encountering unfamiliar things might be startling and even induce a sense of fear, but he assured her he meant her no harm, offering a promise that resonated deeply within Jiang. He then shows her how to use the shower and tells her to give it a try. While taking pictures from her back, he shows her shampoo and teaches her about the functions of the toilet. While she was using the bath, Lei was waiting in the living room. He opens his wardrobe, hoping to find something she could wear. He accidentally opens the bathroom door to give her clothes, but then he realizes he forgot to teach her about locking the door. He gives her a t-shirt and says he'll buy her some dresses tomorrow. He tells her to come over and says he'll teach her how to lock the door. After he comes out, he's scared, thinking he might have come at the wrong time and could have been in trouble. After that, he sits on the sofa. Meanwhile, Jiang is enjoying her bath. She tries to lick the soap but spits it out. Flay wonders if he's dreaming about having an ancient girl in his house. He picks up her sword and unsheathes it. While looking at the sword, he wonders if he should find an expert to identify whether it's an antique. Jiang gets out of the bath and watches Lei writing something. She then gets close to him and asks what he's writing. He shows her the paper and says it's a list of her daily necessities. He gives her the paper and asks if she can read it, but she can't. He says he'll tell her about it later. Jiang then tells him that the clothes are strange for her, but he says they look good on her. He coughs and says he's accustomed to complimenting people on their looks. She glares at him and tells him not to say something flirtatious. He notices she's still wearing her straw shoes, so he tells her to put them away and get slippers from the rack. Suddenly there's a knock on the door, and the takeout man arrives with a bag of food. His sudden appearance startles her, but he quickly assures her not to get nervous. He places the food on the table. Jiang watches him closely, thinking how her cautious side is like a wild cat's. As he unpacks the food, he starts talking. Jiang listens, curious. He shares that her second-in-command once told him a saying, "If someone intends to do something, they're a thief." She can't help but smile at that. She thinks Lei must be a good person. She finishes her meal, and Lei asks if she's done, indicating he wants to talk. Lei begins to explain that because she's from a long time ago, around 1200 years, there might be things she doesn't understand. Jiang nods, and he goes on to say that if she ever wanted to harm him, she'd have a week before anyone would notice. He jokes that she could even hide his body, trying to ease the situation. Then he tells her to put aside her sword for now. He starts talking about TVs and devices, things Jiang has never seen. He takes out his phone and shows her how it works. He tells her she can ask him anything she doesn't understand. Jiang listens, quietly relieved as Lei talks. He mentions how the outside world is complex, peaceful for him, but dangerous for her. Confused, Jiang asks why, and Lei explains that she might hurt people unintentionally and get caught. He shows her an identification card, explaining its importance. Without it, travelling can be difficult. If she's found with a weapon and no ID, she could get in trouble. He tells her that her being from ancient times would cause a sensation if people found out. She wonders if she's like a refugee, but Lei says it's worse. He likens her to a slave without a contract. He shares that he's glad to meet someone like her, even though her situation is perilous. He offers to help her adjust to this new world slowly. Jiang, still uncertain, asks how she can trust him. She mutters about wanting to return home. Lei responds that if she doesn't believe in him, she can forget about it. He emphasizes that he won't be able to help her without her trust. Jiang ponders this for a moment and asks what she should do next. Lei advises her to avoid drawing her sword, as it scares people in this era. She then looks around the room for a bit, her curiosity evident in her eyes. After a moment, she asks where his wife is. Her eyebrows furrow a bit as she adds that it isn't proper for her to be around him if that was the case. He lets out a sigh, his shoulders slumping as he depressingly replies that he is a single dog and is currently unmarried. Her eyes widen in surprise upon hearing that he isn't married, and she stares at him for a moment, clearly taken aback. He lets out another sigh, the weight of his words heavy in the air. He explains that it's normal for a man and a woman to be alone, as long as they don't share the bed. Trying to reassure her, he gestures for her to come with him. He leads her to a room that he uses for storage. With a gentle smile, he tells her that she can live in this room. As Lei starts cleaning up the space, Jiang's curiosity begins to take hold. She can't help but think that this place is quite strange, especially since Lei isn't married even at the age of 20. Despite being a landlord, he seems to live alone. Lei returns with a mattress, assuring her that it's clean and she can use it. He encourages her to get some rest, acknowledging that she might be feeling confused. He reveals that he feels the same way about the situation. With a friendly nod, he leaves the room, bidding her good night. As he walks away, Jiang puts her sword back in its place and sinks into deep thought. Lei, on the other hand, finds himself lost in his own thoughts in the middle of the night while lying in his bed. He replays the events of the day in his mind. He had been on a job interview, but the rain had hindered his return. It was a day that seemed to be a blend of normalcy and misfortune. As the night progresses, he's suddenly jolted awake, realizing he's still in this strange reality. He checks his phone to confirm the time, his heart racing as he processes the reality. Sneaking a glance around, he notices Jiang is already awake. Their eyes meet, and he feels the awkwardness hanging in the air. He clears his throat, attempting to resume their conversation from the previous day, but the words feel foreign on his tongue. He manages to ask if she's hungry, breaking the silence. Jiang's response is soft, admitting that she's only a little hungry. Then a realization dawns on her, and she rushes out of the room. After a brief absence, she returns, presenting him with something. He examines the pieces in his hand, his mind racing with possibilities. Greedily, he wonders if it's gold. However, her next gesture takes him by surprise as she offers him her necklace, suggesting that he could pawn it for more silver. He gently refuses, instructing her to keep the silver pieces. It's then that he notices how out of place she looks in her ancient attire. Determined, he decides to buy her modern clothes and daily necessities. He contemplates taking her shopping, considering the relative lack of police patrols in his area. With a plan in mind, he steps out to begin the shopping expedition. Time seems to pass quickly as he browses through various options. He selects an array of clothes, his eyes falling on a nightdress that catches his attention. His determination doesn't waver even when he reaches the women's underwear section. He knows he has to take the risk, as he can't enter that section alone. An hour later, he exits the store, his arms laden with bags of new items for Jiang. As he gazed at the underwear, his face turned red with embarrassment. Deciding to distract himself, he headed to a library. There, he spent $200 on books, wondering if they'd be useful at home later. On his way home, a familiar police officer asked if he'd been shopping. He said yes, brushing off the mention of a mistaken call from yesterday. The officer warned about a thief and asked him to report any sightings. Returning home, he was surprised to find Jiang looking at him fiercely, sword in hand. After giving her food, he reassured her that the era was safe. He explained bringing daily necessities and stared at her, prompting her to question his demeanor. Lei teased her, expecting gratitude, but she was puzzled. She ate quickly, defying his expectations of a demure, ancient girl. The image of her eating differently perplexed him. He offered clothes he thought would fit and a nightdress, which she accepted. Then she picked up a bra, seeking an explanation. Lei stammered, suggesting a video. He clarified it was women's wear, suggesting she learn on her own. Baffled by the clothes, she received 2 books on history and language. He contemplated teaching her computer use. Seeing her yawn, he recommended rest and inquired if she had more questions. She asked his status in this world. He described his education and unemployment in simpler terms. She assumed he was well off. She began reading the books, shedding tears, and asked how to return home. Lei was baffled. He admitted he didn't know how she had ended up here. She shared that she'd gotten lost in the forest while chasing a thief just yesterday. Lost, she spotted a tall building that led her here. Lei advised her to focus on surviving before thinking about returning home. Curious, he inquired about her military rank, but she brushed that off, mentioning her powerful gang. Then Lei got really curious. Could she do special arts or jump from great heights? She pointed at the building, saying she could jump from there without harm. Lei was stunned to realize it was 4 stories high. He asked about martial arts and heavenly mystic techniques, but she was clueless. Mentioning kung fu, Lei begged her to teach him. She agreed, explaining that martial arts accumulate over time. Lei asked if he could skip the basics, but she firmly said no. How long did he need to practice? 3 years, she answered. Lei wondered if he'd have joined the army if he'd stood up for himself. He abandoned that thought and asked about swordsmanship, but she shot it down. He felt downcast and suggested she try her new clothes. With her gone, Lei saw his chance. He grabbed her sword and tried swinging it. It was too heavy, and he grew tired. She returned in new clothes, and Lei praised how well they fit her. He asked her to move around and let her hair down. Lei even promised to buy her a new headband. When her hair was loose, he couldn't help but shed a few tears at how adorable she looked. He was relieved she didn't realize his reaction. Afterward, he showed her a computer and explained its functions. She wondered what he was doing on it. He said he was using the computer and described it in simple terms. Lei asked if reading was challenging for her. She admitted she was slowly getting the hang of it. He encouraged her to take her time, saying he would have struggled too if he were in her shoes. After that, he begins operating the computer again. She then asks if he doesn't have any work. To this, Lei replies that people have to think to make money in this world, and what he's doing is his work. She wonders if he's a businessman, but he says that's not accurate and she'll understand it slowly. Then he asks about her chief's martial arts skills, to which she replies they're very strong. Lei smirks and clicks on a video. The video is about fictional fighting with martial arts. Jiang gets intrigued and starts watching. Lei interrupts and asks how strong her martial arts are compared to the video. He wonders if their martial arts are this strong. Jiang says the techniques in the video look godlike to her. She imagines fighting the men from the movie and gets scared. Then he shows a different video where someone makes a hole in the ground with their palms. She's scared and speechless. She asks if this is the true power of his world. Lei reveals it's fake. She asks if he's telling the truth and whether it's really fake or real. He replies it's fake and they imagine how ancient people would look. He explains, but she can't understand. He says as she gets more acquainted with this world, she'll understand movies and art. He asks if her leader is stronger than people in the movies. She replies only their footwork looks familiar. He asks if anyone can move superhumanly, and she says only her gang's second miss can. But techniques like the god palm are impossible even for her. He thinks and shows another video, asking if she can do something like that, eyes sparkling. She thinks for a second, then imitates what she saw. Lei feels excited. She tells him if he wants to learn, she can show him the training method. As she leaves, Lei falls to his knees, celebrating behind her. She bumps into a ball, seeing Wintermelon staring. She enters her room, confusing the cat. In her room, she thinks nobody in this world is without ulterior motives. She believes Lei's goal was to learn martial arts. She cowers in fear, thinking about the movies. She looks above the room, finding it spacious. Drawing her sword, she starts practicing, making noise that makes Lei wonder if she's resting. He was also getting tired, so he decided to take a nap and threw himself on the bed. He thought about how cool it was to have a girl who knew martial arts in the room across from his. Suddenly, a loud noise startled him. He wondered what she was up to. After his nap, he woke up and checked his phone. When he saw the time, he realized he'd slept for too long. He got out of bed and figured it was time to show Jiang the world. Before we continue, let's take a moment to shout out at 0_plays90 who commented, "I would bring a knife and lighter, the knife would protect me, and open hard fruits, the lighter would make fires to scare away animals," on our desert island video. Thanks for commenting. As they got ready to go outside, he set some rules for Jiang. He told her to stick with him. He took a picture of her, but it didn't turn out well. He asked her to smile, but her big smile scared him. He reminded her not to make any unnecessary movements when they were out. He told her to put down her sword, but she hesitated. He explained that everyone outside was weak like him and her simple punch would be enough. After that, she clenched her fist and stared at it, saying she understood. They stepped outside and Jiang looked scared by the surroundings. Lei explained about the residential buildings and other people living there. He pointed out shops beyond the entrance. Jiang was frightened by someone riding a scooter, but Lei told her to calm down. He felt proud showing off an ancient girl on the street. In the distance, two people were talking. A lady noticed Jiang and stared. Lei asked what was wrong. The woman thought Jiang looked familiar. The policeman asked if she was his girlfriend, but Lei said they were just friends. The woman remembered seeing Jiang with a sword the other day. They discussed it, but Lei said it was just cosplay. After understanding, they wondered why people do that. Lei grabbed Jiang's hand and they said goodbye. After a while, Jiang let go of his hand and moved away from him. Lei was relieved it was that woman, as things could have gone bad with someone else. Jiang saw a fast car and commented on its speed. Lei told her to think of it like a carrot on a stick, where the car is the carrot and the road is the stick. He pointed to a security camera, explaining that movies were captured by those cameras. He tells her that somebody might be watching them using those cameras, which makes her feel scared. He then says not to worry because those people have other important things to do, but then Jiang picks up some rocks from the ground. Lei wonders what she's doing with the rocks. Suddenly she aims the rocks at the cameras, and Lei shouts, asking if she plans to break them. She looks confused by his reaction. He sighs and tells her to put the rocks back down. After that, they reach a big road, and Lei shows Jiang a traffic light. He explains how it works, saying that when it turns green they can cross. Jiang looks at the street light and seems surprised. Then she looks around the city and gets scared by a barking puppy. Lei shows her something and asks if she wants it. He even imagines her wearing it, but shakes his head. He gets lost in thought while looking at a jewelry stand. Jiang looks at the accessories and something catches her eye. Lei realizes she likes it, so he buys it for her. He looks at her wearing the accessory and thinks it suits her. Next, they arrive at a place to eat. Lei orders some food for both of them. While finding their seats, he explains that it's a dining hall, a place to get food. He tells her that the food they're eating comes from here, and he grew up eating here. She looks around with a dazed look, and he notices. He falls into his own thoughts. A little while later, a person brings their food, which startles Jiang. Lei gives her a chopstick and tells her to eat while drinking a soda. He thinks that things are more complicated than he expected, so he can only take it step by step. After they finish eating, he pays the bill, and they leave. Back at home, Lei asks Jiang if she believes him now. She looks sad and stays quiet. He tries to comfort her, saying that living in this peaceful time might not be so bad. He explains that if they can solve her ID problem, she can work and live happily. But Jiang still wants to go back home. He tells her that's impossible because they're 1200 years in the past. She asks how to solve her identity problem, and he admits he's not sure, but they'll figure it out eventually. He tells her to start by getting used to this society and he'll help. Jiang feels happy to hear that and thanks him, calling him young hero. Lei smiles and says it's no big deal. He explained to her how important the idea was and said he'd show her with an example. Curious, he asked where the piece of paper from yesterday was. John quickly responded that she had thrown it in the dustbin. Lei looked at the dustbin, his face filled with worry. and asked what would happen if she couldn't solve this identity issue. Jiang questioned Lei further, and he explained that without an identity card, she wouldn't have any rights. He mentioned that most types of jobs, apart from illegal sweatshops, required an identity card. Without a paying job, it would be hard for her to take care of herself. He added that she wouldn't be able to rent a place or stay at a hotel without an identity card either. Even travelling to faraway places like on a bullet train or a long-distance coach would be tough. Also, if she had any disagreements, she couldn't resolve them without an identity card. Jiang thought aloud that if she could find a way to make money and have a place to stay, maybe she wouldn't need an identity card. But Lei disagreed, saying that getting a phone line or a bank card also required an identity card. He started searching online, noting that if she had arrived 20 years earlier, this problem might have been simpler. While looking for solutions online, he suggested that she could try contacting the government, although that might risk her freedom. Feeling protective, Jiang gripped her sword and questioned Lei about his intentions to hand her over to the authorities. Lei assured her it was just a hypothetical thought. He advised her to study the world's history first before making any decisions. Jiang then asked him softly if she was bothering him by staying there. Lei's response was reassuring. As long as she didn't go around slashing everything, it was actually okay. After searching for a while, Lei sighed. He didn't find anything useful, so he checked his phone and thought about calling Qin Hao, his best buddy who is a local police officer. Lei also thought about how Jiang would react when she saw him, so he decided to text her first. He asked her to go out for some skewers, thinking she might know something since she's a civil servant. After that, Lei decided to take a shower. While showering, he wondered if Jiang had taken a shower yet. He suddenly remembered he forgot to buy her pajamas. He realized that with someone of the opposite sex in the house, he couldn't walk freely without clothes. Later, Jiang slowly opened her room's door, and after checking the surroundings, quickly dashed into the bathroom. She was enjoying her shower, which made Lei think that even ancient people took daily showers. The next day, Lei bought a writing tablet for her. He explained that it could recognize Chinese characters and phonetic symbols accurately. While teaching her how to use it, Wintermelon startled them. Lei told Jiang to take her time, and he would feed Wintermelon. As he fed the cat, Jiang looked at him and asked what kind of food he had in his hand. Lei explained it was specially made cat food, shocking Jiang, who had imagined cat food growing on trees. He clarified that it's manufactured food and not what she was thinking of. Just then, a food delivery guy knocked on the door. Lei gave the package to Jiang and told her he was going to meet a friend for her identity issue. He said he would teach her how to contact him using the computer and told her not to leave the house. While Jiang was enjoying her burger, Wintermelon approached her with sparkly eyes. However, Lei picked up the cat and said she needed to stick to the cat food. Jiang asked if she couldn't feed the burger to Wintermelon, and Lei replied that she couldn't because it's unhealthy. Jiang looked at him in disbelief, ate the burger slowly while sobbing, and found the hamburger no longer appealing. Before leaving, Lei created a QQ account for her and explained that she could use the writing tablet to contact him if anything came up. Lei finally arrived and found Ken waiting. They hadn't talked in a while, so they decided to have a great night of drinks. Curious about Ken's police job, Lei asked how it's going. Ken shared it's not quite what he expected, filled with small problems like breaking up fights. Lei asked why there are so many little arguments. Ken explained it's a sign of peace. Growing up, Ken dreamt of being a cop, despite being shorter than the old height requirement. Luckily, the rule changed to test jumping ability instead, and he made it. Laughing, Ken admitted he once hoped for a real bandit to show up so he could dive into action. Lei teased him, saying he should stop fantasizing about that. Switching topics, Lei asked an interesting question. Imagine someone with no memory needing an ID card. Ken responded they'd likely be an unregistered citizen, unable to get an ID card. Lei hinted about a friend facing this issue, and Ken's detective instincts kicked in. Lei assured him it's just a theoretical question. Ken shared the police approach. If they meet an unregistered person claiming memory loss, they'd investigate. They'd check if they were missing, kidnapped, or escaped. If all checks cleared, they'd be released. No crime, just confusion. Lei asked, "What about the identity card? Wouldn't the police help with that?" Kin shook his head, saying, "Of course not. Let's say he had a knife and used it to stab you. Then he gets mad and tells you to stab someone else." Kim interrupted. "If he stabs someone and goes for surgery and comes back with no memory, that's not okay." What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.